you're talking about.
Actually, that's a good point. I know I've done a review where
Welcome everybody to the Ash Schubert and Kevin pod, the AccountDads, as we've rebranded or as we've informally called ourselves the last year or so. This is the podcast for the finance and accounting leaders, strategizers, thinkers, and doers. Lads, we are back. 2026. What a year 25 was. 26. We are here, and our first topic for this year is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. It is how to business partner like a pro. Now, Ash, let me kick off with you, my brother. You've come from a couple of different roles into a new role. So this is probably fresher in your mind because you're now working with newer people and you're trying to build this culture again. Hubert, you've obviously gone through this at Sydney Zoo as well. And I've had a couple of experiences as well doing this. Let me just start off with one question. Is it wrong to just want to be an accountant and do your job from 9 to 5, look at spreadsheets, send emails, and go home? Let me open it up there. Let me ask the unpopular question that many are sitting there on their desks thinking.
definitely nothing wrong with it. It's the right time, right place for what the organization needs. So yeah, if there's a need for that type of role, absolutely keep it. But what I've noticed more recently is there's a need to actually get operational improvement, and that's where it's changing.
Yeah. So Ash, you touched on one thing there. It's all about the need. Now, those needs are more often reporting type roles. You're talking about either bookkeepers, transactional accountants, or even people that just generate reports and send them. But the modern day accountant, as you see, as we're kind of fed down our throats with the CA, CPA, I don't know if you guys have seen the marketing campaigns, by the way. They make accountants look very hip and sexy and in there in businesses doing all these things. But the modern day accountant, businesses are craving for this business partnering. So tell us a bit about that. One of you guys, what is business partnering? Why is it such an important skill set? And why is the modern day accountant required to do that?
Well, business partnering is sending an email once a month, right? That's what you guys have experienced. Sending it out once a month to your stakeholders saying, here's your P&L, these are your results. And then you send that email and it's done. And that's the end of it. And
Yeah.
the business sort of come back to us every so often and go, hey, can you tell me about a professional services line? Or, hey, something looks unusual in my P&L, and it stops there. So I think that's business partnering in its nutshell. Have you guys experienced anything differently from there?
Yeah, I guess for me, like I come from the other point of view where, just as an accountant, I guess I see it as a responsibility of let's report, what's happened to the key stakeholders, and I guess they sort of are the decision makers. Now, I get where you're coming from, where then you sort of take the next level where you actually start helping them make those decisions. But I guess the key part is to make sure we report correctly what's what the business is performing at the moment. So I guess there is still a role where there is a basic accounting role where you send the P&Ls, send just reporting what's happening. But then, yeah, I guess as you sort of further your career, you should be going to the FPB role. Yeah.
Well, Hubert, when you say producing some reports, so we're looking back in time, right? So we're going to be looking, going, hey, like let's say it's the month now. It's a month of January 2026. What number did we hit for January? Is it reported all correctly? What happens about the future months? What do you guys do there? Oh, hey, business, can you tell me a number they're going to be hitting for Feb 2026 and then March 2026, and I'll call that my forecast. Is that the approach that we take here?
I guess Hubert's point is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hubert, I don't mean to speak on your behalf, but maybe in some organizations, that forward-looking role is more an FP&A type of role, and so they're not asked, even though they ask for inputs, they're not asked to do that type of work, and so they're very transactional, they're very historic-looking, and so their mindset is built. I actually, I'm on your side, Ash. I think everyone, even if that's your role, should be forward-looking and understand the business, but sometimes you're just not asked to do that, and so you don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're looking at the size of organization. Let's stumble across something very clear there. Like on the larger organization, yes, you've got an FP&A team, they can look forward, but in smaller organizations, you wear multiple hats, right? You may have a CFO, you may have a really strong finance manager or a financial controller, and they're doing everything. You're touching payroll, AP, AR, everything. You're controlling the balance sheets, P&Ls, trying to do the forecasting, trying to get your bank recs sorted, everything. And that's when it's going to be really critical to be well-rounded, right? You can't just be looking, if you're going to be a really strong finance person, you're going to need both, right? You're going to need to have a really strong background, like what Hubert's saying and Kev's saying, like go back, make sure the numbers are accurate and presented, and also have the ability to talk the language that the business are talking, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that was a transition, right? It was about, I've stepped into a few roles, as Kev was saying, and business partnering, that element got chucked around with the finance team really not understanding what that meant. And it was interesting when we actually put that down, and I was like, oh, what do you think you mean when you say business partner, aside from reading Seek job ads? Because that's what they were just skimming at that time. Like, we want a commercial business partner, or no, we want a finance business partner. And I've held both of those roles before as well. And it was really interesting because it's like, oh, you're going to do the budget and forecasting. I was like, all right, cool. So who's my business contact? Oh, the finance team's your business partner. I was like, oh, right, okay. Are we sure we're getting the right inputs? Yeah, everything's all good. Everything's all good. Then you go back to the business and you finally show them P&L, like, we didn't give you these numbers. This is far from reality. These are your numbers. You present them. I'm like, oh, okay, right. So there's a huge disconnect that you're trying to do. So what the point of this was is, how do you get the dialogue and action from the business themselves and translate that into relevant finance terms? So for me, it was like, do you need to just send more Teams messages to people? Do you need to send more Outlook emails? What is that answer, right?
Yeah. I want to bring up an example, and then I'll use an analogy as well. So an example, I was talking to a mate recently, and he was saying so he's an ops manager, sat in a meeting, the finance person presented these numbers in front of all these execs and stuff. And the ops manager, him, and a couple of other people started questioning some of the numbers. And they essentially asked the finance business partner, where did you get these numbers from? Like, how did you make these calls? The finance person said, oh, we've made some operational assumptions. And he said, oh, who have you spoken to make the operational assumptions? Like, how did you get that information? He's like, no, we just looked at data and made some operational assumptions. And he's like, how can you make assumptions on forecasts and numbers without talking to the people that know these inputs best? And that's the clearest example I had of like disconnect between the business and the finance team. My analogy, and bear with me with this, is Nathan Cleary, one of the best halfbacks of our time. One of the reasons that make him one of the things that makes him the best halfback of all time is his understanding of the players around him. He understands how the forwards run. He understands the personalities next to him. He understands the ticker, the fitness. He understands his team really well. So he's not just a halfback that's going to take it and pass it and look for his own type of plays. He knows that it's the 78th minute. I've got Liam Martin running on my right side. He's going to keep running all day. But if I'm on my left, Scott Sorensen's probably going to be a bit tired. And so because of that understanding, it makes him really good at what he does. And so that's my analogy. If we want to become good finance people, the better we understand the teams around us and the business around us, we can also be like Nathan Cleary. Ash and Hubert, give us one bad example, an example of a poor finance business partner, and one of a good scenario that you've seen kind of work out.
Poor business partnering for me is the once a month communication, right?
Yeah.
That's extremely,
just an email at the end of the month.
Just an email, and that's it. There's no other contact, and it's here you go. Here's your 6 different P&Ls, and happy days. I think what a good business partner looks like for me is where you're sitting with the business, you're around them, you're having conversations more frequently, really understanding their pain points and trying to address that from a finance lens. I think that's a real join the dot moment for me.
What have you seen?
Yeah, so I guess with the poor side of stuff is, I guess you're right, like the communication. Like, I guess in every business, like in my business, there's a few different departments, and I guess you got to be able to understand what they do, and how they will operate to sort of get them the best results as well. So a poor business, I guess, in a poor scenario is if you just sort of work in your silo, don't talk, just what the system says, just report it, send it off, and that's not good. Whereas I guess a good side is sort of like you're saying, okay, look, these are numbers. Even mid-month, you can sort of say, look, these are numbers that I'm sort of seeing. Are you doing the right thing? Should we be looking at different scenarios? And I guess I have seen, and I guess that's what we sort of focus there as well. We sort of, don't wait to end the month results. Sort of as you're seeing things happening, be like, okay, what's going on? let's have a chat to them, because I guess we're the ones with numbers at the end of the day, and we should the more frequently you report them, the quickly you can make decisions and improve the scenario.
Can I ask you guys a question? So, is one of the reasons people don't do the business partnering well is because they're fearful of firstly dealing with a business, so different personalities, but also fearful of sounding like they don't know what they talk about. Because I can imagine the fear of an accountant sitting in, say, a construction business. You're trying to understand the business, but you talk to project managers or engineers and stuff, and they're like, "Look at this idiot! Like all he knows is accounting. All the questions he asks are dumb." And that's the thought that's running in our head as accountants, right? But more often than not, everyone's happy to tell you about their world so you can understand it better. But do you reckon that's one of the fears, and that's why there's a bit of a hesitancy?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like, and that is part of the challenge of business partnering. You're running multiple different personality types. You're understanding different types of business lingo, like, and it is tough to get across, right? So if you're used to a very transactional type of role where you're in control each day of the month, you know what you're doing, all of a sudden to go into supporting a business where every day is changing and it could be a different fire that you're putting out or whatever that looks like, it's extremely challenging. So yeah, there's absolutely a fear of, one, understanding what the business is doing, and secondly, how to communicate with those individual business people, because a lot of them, let's face it, they're not financial people. They understand numbers that's relevant to them. So let's say you talk to a buying department, they understand margins, but if you talk to payroll, they understand their expenses, but they don't understand the whole P&L, right? They're not able to join those dots. So yeah, it's an absolute fear, and I think the final fear is if it's a traditional transactional financial accountant, you've not been exposed to those environments either, where you're dealing with operations and having to have inputs and trying to negotiate your way through. So it's sometimes a lack of skill as well.
Yeah, and I guess also sometimes when you're dealing with these different business departments, they're very specialized in what they do. So say, for example, like me, if I deal with a maintenance guy, he's very skillful at what he does. He might not be good numbers, but say if I walked up and spend less in this project, he's just going to be like, what do you know, man? It's like, if I spend less, it's not going to finish. So it is, and I kind of stupid then as well, right? So it can be intimidating when you don't know the task as well as they do as well.
So how do you bridge that though? Like so you're going to a maintenance guy.
Yeah.
You're trying to get some understanding. How do you bridge that conversation?
I think that's what it is. You've got to understand the project and sort of, I guess it's something you learn over time. The more you sort of deal with projects, you realize, how that side of industry works as well. Just the way their tradies work, and you're better off next time around. But it can be a bit intimidating, can make the errors early on. But yeah,
I think we should flip it the other way around, and we should really promote how do we get accountants to be more curious, right? And that should be effectively running throughout your whole career. Of that curiosity will always get you to just ask some questions, and you can openly say, "Hey, I don't know the answer to this. Can you take me on that journey?" And a lot of people, like Kev was saying earlier, they will take you on that journey without having to overthink a lot of these scenarios. Being like, "Am I going to look stupid?" And this is my whole reputation on the line. Like, the curiosity is what actually sparks that interest. And you may come back and say, "Hey, I just want to learn about what you're doing when you pick out a maintenance contract. Is it because they're cheap, or is it because they deliver a really good service?"
Yeah,
or, once you figure out what they're like, then you can come up with some finance suggestions of, "Hey, do we look at other suppliers, or do we? Is there a way we can get some bulk discounts or whatever from that guy?" You don't have to change what he's doing for work, but just be like, "Hey, can we apply a little finance lens to it?" Or, "Hey, we're going to be spending X amount of money without them to the whole year. Can we just buy that whole company and integrate it as part of our solution?" Right? And I've seen that happen as well, right? All of a sudden it's going, "We actually use this company all the time. It's just cheaper for us to buy that whole lot rather than keep using them." So it's really interesting, actually. So
you asked the perfect the way you put it, Ash. It's perfect, because I think the other challenge is as well, when sometimes accountants go to ops or delivery people, their tone and the way they say things is what drives that rift half the time. So either the first thing is, I know, basically in the attitude of, "Oh, I know everything. I'm a finance and accounting guy, so this is what you should do." That's the first thing that creates a rift. But the second thing is as well, you think you're doing it from a tone of curiosity, but it sounds like a tone of, you don't know what you're doing kind of thing. And so if you're genuinely going in there with that attitude of, I remember like Ashley, at the place we were working at, when I started at in this construction industry, I actually had no idea about how anything was working. So I literally pulled one of the guys into a room and I was like, can I just understand everything in here? Because I have no idea. I've never been in this industry. And hopefully, between the both of us, we can make sense of it. And I can add a bit of a numbers lens to it as well. And through that, I think in a similar conversation, you're hoping to bridge the gap where they can learn a bit more about the numbers side and you're learning more about the business. And so that'll create a more fruitful relationship.
And how amazing is it when you get that harmonious relationship going, right? Because now you're both on the same page. So then, and then you can have this really open conversation. They're like, look, mate, we've got a higher up target to hit of, let's say, whatever it is, $200 million of revenue. If we do the build as you guys are doing right now and your current run rates, exactly how you're running the business, we get 180. How do we bridge a 20 million gap as an example, right? And that's a way different conversation rather than you guys are not productive. Do more with the same resources. And that's a way different conversation, right? And so they may come back and say, all right, there's a $20 million gap. What levers have we got to play with? Can we do some sort of special projects, or no, we can't do it. Let's readjust some expectations, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a way more, like you're saying, fruitful conversation. But you can go with so much more substance now to the finance perspective, as well as to the actual business. And I think it's game changing in that case. You become the unicorn effectively because you understand everything. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is as well because sometimes we go into these conversations thinking, oh, it's very transactional. I want to get what I can out of you. You can get what you can out of me and walk away. But just make mates with them. Like become friends with people from other teams. That's also another way to do it, is create better relationships. And I know sometimes as accountants, we're poor at making friends and we're not very sociable, but everyone likes talking to people. Become friends with people in the other teams and have a beverage with them if that's what it takes sometimes.
It's just cappuccino, right, Hubert?
Well, I definitely agree with that part. You got to become like sort of friendly with the other departments, and that makes your life so much easier for both sides. So definitely, it's worth the investment.
Yeah. Any golden nuggets if you had to train up a finance business partner today to get them ready? So it's January now, to get them ready by the 1st of Feb. What's one thing that you reckon you'd tell them to do straight away?
Look, if I've got the luxury of hanging around strong business partners, so let's say now I've got a team. I can see, let's say there's a couple of strong business partners. I'd say, hey, go and shadow that person for a little bit just to figure out what's going on, how they're running their side of the business. If we don't have that luxury and we're saying, how do we create that trust and the reliability and everything else, I'd be like, let's go spend time together. And I'd actually take your manager along with you, or whoever it is, someone that you trust, or open up some conversation and just go, let's do this conversation together, and just go in with that vulnerability of, hey, we don't know everything. Can you take us on that journey, and just be upfront. But I think presence for me is probably the big key takeaway, right? You really need to be there, show yourself, just be contactable the whole time. Because if you're not, you're going to get this initial, okay, you're here for either take more money off me or tell me that I need to do more or that my numbers are wrong, right? So which one is it, right? So you can almost shift that conversation just by being present and just opening up those conversations.
Yeah.
I think something you alluded to before, Kevin. I think you just got to drop the ego, go on there with the open mind, sort of saying, look, maybe I've done everything. I'm here for you to teach me as well. That will sort of make that relationship better. You can learn holidays as well.
I think those are all great points. And the other thing I like for myself, and you talked about this curiosity mindset, Ash, is understand how the business works. So understand how this business brings leads in and how we get work. Understand how we actually deliver the work. Understand how that work ends up in your general ledger. Like there's all these things that you can spend time on understanding for you to have the full big picture built out. Because chances are no one in the business will have the opportunity to understand the end-to-end like the accountant can. And so you have the opportunity to kind of be the conduit for not just you and the main part of the business, but also the other teams like HR, marketing, sales. And so that's why I find we have a very rich position to be in, because we can be this conduit and we know all the numbers because we have access to everything.
Actually, that's a good point. Because I know I've done that at the zoo where certain departments, I'll go up to them and show them what I show at the board. I go, this is what I got to show at the board level. Let's work backwards. And you can see why I'm asking you all these questions, why you are reporting the certain numbers. Then they understand why I'm asking you. The way I talk is because at the end result, this is what I'm going to present to the board, and this is sort of how I get there. And I guess by them understanding what I'm doing, it helps them sort of picture. They know why I'm asking certain questions. They know why we're sort of pushing them in certain ways. I guess that helps as well. Yeah, showing them the end picture, end result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine if you didn't have those outputs and showed that in a conversation, how that would have gone. Oh, you guys need to spend more, or like you need to spend less, and tighten everything up. You're spending too much money. That'll just flip you off, right? Straight away. Like, who is this guy? Get lost, right? Like, you're adding zero value. But now the fact that you're saying, hey, we're showing this to the board. This is how we're driving this behavior, and this is the type of numbers that we're trying to show in the story. Do you guys agree or disagree or what's happening? At least you can get that full input, right? It's really good. I think curiosity's got to be the main one, right? Without that, everything else really falls out the window. So
yeah. Well, great. Thanks, lads. That brings us to the end of our first episode of the year. Continue to tune into the AccountDads if you enjoyed this content. We're really passionate about helping accountants, finance people, and just business owners in general to power themselves and power up their skill sets. We're also dads, so we like talking about how we juggle this. So like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.